global battery demand. So if we look at the situation between the 2018 and 2030, we can see that the battery demand is expected to increase by 14%. The main contributor to this rising demand for lithium-ion batteries is the electric vehicle market. The stationary storage market, however, is also expected to experience a significant growth in the next decade, and the total global battery demand is expected to reach nearly 1,000 gigawatt hour per year by 2025 and exceed 2,600 gigawatt hour by 2030. In Europe as well, the demand for electric vehicle batteries is expected to grow a lot and to surpass 200 gigawatt hour per year by 2023, and to go up, let's say, growing. So, as you can see here, indeed, the electric mobility is the highest growth expected, but also energy storage and stationary energy storage. Practically, if we think about it, it's the energy storage for the renewable energy. So the solar plants and the wind plant and so on. And this is the global growth by region. So of course, we will see in all these presentations that China is predominant in this sector of batteries, and so the highest growth is from China, but the second one should be from the European Union. If we look at the power growth, so current and predicted power growth, and we look at the different, let's say, kind of batteries. So if we have a look also before lithium-ion, lithium-based battery, we can see that of course, the expected main growth in terms of power will be for the lithium-ion. But actually, the power on the market, the highest power on the market, it's still the lead-acid battery. Why? Because in all the current cars, so with the combustion motor car, the battery is a lead acid, and it is still the higher part of the market in terms of power. However, if you look at the red part, we can see that lithium-ion batteries are expected, of course, to have the highest growth, and they are also the major part of the investment. This is the total battery demand for electric vehicle, and this is like provision to up to 2030. So here we can see the lithium-ion for electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. And this is basically the need until 2030. And we can see that it's expected to have a big growth in electric vehicles, both like in all the world and in specific in China. Okay, the share of electric buses, which is in purple, is expected also to grow, but like it's a much more limited growth, let's say. And if we look the provision in terms of $1 million, so before we are looking in terms of power, megawatt hour, and in terms of $1 million, we can see that basically the growth in electric vehicle, like in China and in all the rest of the world, more or less is expected to be the same. So in terms of power, we are expecting a growth by the order of 26%, and in terms of money, of $1 million, it's more like 18%. It's anyway impressive growth. Now, if we have a look on the lithium-ion market in general, between the years 2000 and 2018. Well, years 2000, we are talking about already 22 years ago. So it was like more or less the beginning of the big market of the lithium-ion. And the place where you can find it more was the portable PC. Okay, so computer, laptop, let's say. Then other portable electronics a little bit, and the phones also a little bit. 22 years ago, it was like the beginning of cellular phones. And we, in terms of power for lithium-ion batteries, we were below 2 gigawatt hour. Already in year 2018, you can see that we went from below 2 gigawatt hour to around 160 gigawatt hour. So it was 80 times more. It was like an incredible growth. But what happened basically between 2000 and 2018? Well, electric vehicles happened. So we can see that it redistributed completely the share on the market in terms of lithium-ion batteries on the market, because we had like the highest share, which become the auto and electric bus in China. So lithium-ion batteries for this application, 44%, and 20% in all other parts except China. So at this point, electronic devices, including laptop and cell phone, fall down to 20%, and some other like other application are some medical device, power tools, gardening tools, electric bike also, and so on. And this is, let's say, the growing of the market. So you can see that more or less up to 2000 and, well, let's say 10, 11, 12, most of the lithium ion on the market were for the electronic devices, so laptop and cell phone. And then it started to grow the market of the electric vehicle in China and outside China, let's say. Okay. If we look at the market analysis in the years 2019, 2020, so more recent year, well, in 2019, about 7.2 million of electric vehicles were on the roads worldwide. 2.5 million of these were sold in 2019 alone. So it's like a big share, constituting indeed a 6% growth from the previous years, and a 2.6% of the total passenger car market share. So by 2019, 2.6% of the cars worldwide were already electric. Both China and the United States experienced reduced electric vehicle sales in 2019 because, well, basically they made big economical politics, subsidiary politics before 2019, and then in 2019 they say, okay, it's enough, and they stopped. So the sales decreased. In Europe, it's like the contrary, because Europe began giving like subsidiaries and help to people who wanted to get an electric car in 2019. So the electric car vehicle sales increased by 50%. And there was also, interestingly, between 2018 and 2019, an increase of more than 100% in Europe for electric buses. So electric public transportation, let's say. This growth was indeed explained in Europe by purchase incentive. And it's expected now is that this incentive, of course, will stop because it cannot stay forever. And it's indeed the regulatory policies that will change the situation. And indeed, a new text got out from the European Commission saying that from 2035, there could not be no new thermal engine cars in Europe. So, of course, people will have to buy electric cars or a bike. If we look at the lithium-ion market forecast, so provisions for next 10 years, let's say, so we said that in 2018 we were above 160 gigawatt hour. Well, for 2030, it's expected 1,200 gigawatt hour, with the highest share of the market being kept by auto and electric bus in the world, excluded China, 38% for China And then all just this little share here will be for all the other lithium-ion batteries, so laptop, cell phone, e-bikes, stuff like that. And here we can see also on the graph bar, we can see that the highest growth will be indeed for the transportation in all the world except China. And we can see that all the other electronic devices are keeping stable. But well, this can be explained by the fact that now it's like we more or less all have one laptop and one cellular phone, and it's so this number is not expected to grow so much. Like it's already available to everyone more or less, of course, while a little number of person for now have an electric car, and this is expected to change basically. This is indeed the forecast for portable electronic devices alone. So you can see, as I was saying, that the number for cellular phone is expected to grow, but not so much, to keep more or less stable. And it's also the same for laptop, portable PCs. Tablet, of course, they appeared more or less in 2015, but then once again, the share, the number more or less is keeping stable. And we have a growth of the voice, which is other portable electronics. So what is it? It's basically all the devices that were not equipped with batteries before. You can think, like for example, to gardening tools. So some years ago, not so long ago, all your gardening tools had to be plugged in, like the machine you use to to cut the grass in your garden and stuff like that. It was all plugged in, and small, little by little, step by step, all these kind of tools are now equipped with batteries, so you don't have a wire anymore, which is really practical. So it's like new applications which are let's say appearing on the market. Of course, there are also a lot of, for example, medical devices which are now more and more equipped with batteries. So this market is expected to grow because it's like new applications basically. And the other graph here is just for curiosity to see the cell lithium-ion market still, but in function of the form factor of the cell. So if we think about pouch cell or cylindrical cell or prismatic cell, okay, so we can see that the initial growth, an important growth, was about the lithium-ion cylindrical cell. So it already appeared in the year 2000, and it's expected to, let's say, keep growing. Then in the beginning we can see that we had also a big share of prismatic cell. In particular, around the years 2010 there were a lot of prismatic cell, but it's now decreasing, and it's expected that in some year prismatic cell won't be used anymore. They are not so practical. And in the meantime, basically substituting the prismatic cell, we have the pouch cells, which are actually flatter, so more easy to incorporate in different applications. And we can see that the market for pouch cell is growing a lot. So we are expecting in some year to have mainly pouch cell and cylindrical cell in the market. This is then for electric vehicle in particular. So if we look at a hybrid vehicle, plug-in hybrid, and full electric vehicle, and we can see like the share for hybrid vehicle in the world except China. So this is once again the expected growth in million of cars. Okay, so we are expecting to go from, like today we are around 5.26 millions of cars to grow by 29 millions by 2030. Here it's the same with the plug-in hybrid. So indeed, now like the plug-in hybrid are, I think, the biggest share of the market. But well, it's expected to change, and the market should concentrate on full electric, let's say, in in the next years. Now, if we look a little bit toward technico-economical aspect, and if we look at how can we split the cost of a battery, of a lithium-ion cell, and how this is expected to go on, to change in the next years. So, in 2010, well, the cost dollar over 4 kilowatt hour was around 400, okay? A big part was actually the cathode price. So the cathode is quite expensive. And then we have the anode, the electrolyte, the separator, so it's quite expensive. And other kind of cost, as you can see here. Also, the depreciation of the battery is to be taken into account. It's very important. And yeah, it's still a big share of the price. We can see that actually the price of the lithium cell is decreasing. So this is a scenario, so a simulation, which was done in 2019. It's important to see that. Why? Basically, because now the scenarios, the modeling is changing. I will show you that in some slides toward the end of my presentation. And now the economists starting to say that it might be that the cost will increase again because of the problem of raw materials. And we will talk about that just in a moment. So anyway, what's interesting to note is the cathode price is still keeping elevated. It's still an expensive element of our cell, the cathode, while basically all the other costs are expected to decrease. Okay. And if we look at the cost of the battery pack, so not the cell now, but all the pack, okay, we can still see that the highest share, one of the highest share is basically the cathode. And after that, if the cell manufacturing, like the light gray you can see here, okay? But the cathode is still the most expensive part of the batteries. So we were talking about raw material. Let's talk also about, let's say, supply risk and so on. If we can divide the supply chain of a battery in 4 categories, it would be raw materials, processed materials, components, and then assemblies. Okay, so raw materials, it's the raw materials you are using inside your battery. So cobalt, lithium, graphite, and so on. So interestingly, you can see that the countries or the region that are the most important in providing these materials, so the raw materials, well, the most important one is China, with almost a third. Okay. Then you have Africa and Latin America. Latin America, of course, is really important for lithium. It's a big share also. And then all the other regions are much, much lower. And if I think about Europe, because I'm in Europe, you can see it's 1% of raw materials is in Europe. Then, if we move to processed materials, so I'm not anymore talking about cobalt, graphite. I'm talking about already active cathode material. For example, NMC, LCO, lithium cobalt oxide, or anode materials like the graphite is used as active material, but the processed graphite. And I go and look once again which region in the world is providing the processed material. Well, once again, the most important player is China with 52%. And just afterward, we've got Japan. So Japan does not have a lot of raw material, but Japan does process a lot the raw material, okay, to provide the active material. Now, let's move along to components. So no, it's not active materials, it's the whole cathode. Okay, so the current collector, the active material, the carbon, the binder, like a ready-to-use cathode. If you want to buy a cathode, you can already put in a cell. Okay. Well, once again, who is the biggest player? China, 52% of the market. And the second one is still Japan. Okay. If we look at Europe, we have 9%. It's really, really small. And of course, in the end, if we go to lithium ion cells production, so someone from who you can buy a cell, a ready to use cell, well, China is still the biggest one with 66%, okay, of the market. Then we have Russia, we have the rest of Asia, and like other countries, a mix of other countries. Okay, so we can see that on this market, the most important player for now is for sure China, and then also Japan is important, but China is the most important one. So one political aspect also to think, if we want to redistribute the lithium ion cell production over the world, this has to be better distributed basically, because for now everything is like in the hand of one player, and we all depend on this player. This is a quick look on lithium ion cells production over the world. So China, as we say, is around 60% of the lithium ion cell production over the world. Then we have Japan with 17%, Korea 15%, and Europe is below 1%. And the USA is around 2%. Okay, so what's expecting is that the production in Korea and Japan should decrease a little bit in the next years. China, we expect it will still keep growing. And of course, I will now present you the situation of the European Union. And of course, here we are expected a big growth. So we will see. So basically, for now, more than 90% of the world's production takes place in China, Korea, and Japan. Europe has a bit delay regarding the cell production, so we are far away, far behind. But we are expecting a big increase by factor 2.5 to 4, expecting for Europe. And we are expecting to reach, this was a prediction from 2019. So they were expecting 8% by 2022, which is now, and it's still a big delay, but something should change. And indeed, this is the provision of gigafactories creation in Europe, like for the next 10 years. So this is a little bit small, but you can see every time like the producer and what's expected. For example, in Italy, we have FAM, which was expected to produce in 2021. They are a little bit late, but they are almost there. What's expected is 8 gigawatt hour per year, okay, with an investment of 505 million euros. And the number of people that will be employed, the number of jobs here is not declared. But if you will look at for example, at Northvolt, which is opening in the North countries, this factories here is already working. Okay, so indeed it was for 2019. It's not a gigafactory because it's a little bit below. It's 0.35 gigawatt hour per year, with an investment of 750 million euros and the creation of 1,000 jobs. Okay, so here you can see more or less all the projects in Europe, and you can see that there is a big will in Europe to increase the lithium-ion cell production. So indeed, it's the European automotive industry which is driving the demand for batteries. So European automotive industry wants European batteries, not Chinese batteries. And this is the fastest growing market in the world for plug-in vehicles. So strong strategic alliance along the value chains are created between the material producer and the battery producer, and they are resulting in the ongoing construction of European gigafactories. Also, big car companies like Tesla, LG, Chemcatl, and so on are opening their lithium-ion cells production in Europe. And therefore, the plan is to add approximately 500 gigawatt hour production capacity for Europe in 2030. And it's foreseen that Europe should have a 16% share of the 2,550 gigawatt hour global battery market by 2029, while for now it's just like a 6% share. So if we go back to the question of the materials, because it's very nice like to plan and to write on paper that we want to open gigafactories in Europe. But if we don't have the material, well, that's a problem. Okay, so let's have a look in detail about the important, the crucial materials for the batteries and all the problem that can be associated to the supply, let's say. So what are the raw materials most used in the battery? We have copper. Copper is used, as you know, as current collector in the form of a foil at the anode side, and then it can also be used in wires or other conductive parts in the battery. Copper is not a critical raw material. For now, there is no problem. Then there is graphite, natural or synthetic. For a battery, it must be high-grade purity to be used in the anode electrode. And it's graphite, it's a very common anode material in lithium-ion battery. Graphite is a critical raw material. Silicon also is planned to be used. It's a lot studied now at the research level, and it's planned to be used in the next generation of lithium-ion batteries at the anode still, because it greatly enhances the energy density of the battery. And silicon can also be considered like a critical raw material. Titanium also is considered as a future anode material and also as coating in lithium titanium oxide for battery packaging. Aluminum is used both for the packaging and for the current collector of the cathode, and also in nickel, cobalt, aluminum batteries, NCA batteries, but aluminum is not a critical raw material for now. Then we have niobium, which is an element of interest for future anode and cathode material, like as coating, for example, to improve the stability and to improve the energy density of the batteries. But niobium is already a critical raw material. Of course, we have cobalt, which is a lot used in the active cathode materials, like in lithium cobalt oxide, nickel cobalt aluminum, nickel manganese cobalt batteries, and so on. And of course, cobalt is a critical raw material. Lithium, well, of course, used in lithium cobalt oxide as the cathode. It's used as a salt in the electrolyte. It can be used also as metallic lithium in a future anode for batteries. And lithium can be considered as a critical raw material. Then there is manganese and nickel that are a lot considered for cathode active material, like in NMC or LMO or NCA batteries. But for now, nor manganese, neither nickel are considered critical raw materials. So this is the abundancy in the earth crust of the different materials I just cited that are used in the battery. And as you can see, well, basically lithium and cobalt are like quite low. Let's say their abundance in the earth crust is quite low. And other that are a lot used anyway, the abundance is not so high. So the dependency on imported materials, it's not only a problem like a strategic problem for European battery manufacturer, but it's also actually an issue as the sustainability and the traceability of the raw materials for non-European sources are, well, quite difficult to define. So building up a European capacity to produce a lot of cells and a lot of batteries, meaning that there should be also a build up in the European capacity to extract and process the raw material in order to have a diversification of the supply chain and to limit the supply risk. However, the problem is the abundance of raw materials on the European territory is anyway very limited. So, a very important point to consider for the future of batteries, and it's not only for Europe, I mean, it's worldwide, because if we think a little bit about the number I was showing you before of the increase of the demand for lithium ion battery, anyway, worldwide, the supply of the raw material will be a problem. There won't be enough. So a really important point is recycling of batteries. This is fundamental. This means that also new batteries, future batteries, will have to be conceived in a way that they are more easily recyclable, and that the active material is more easily, let's say, withdraw and reused. Okay. This is metal needs for rechargeable batteries, and this is the increase which is expected. So you can see here the cobalt uh, between 2000 and 2030, we are at almost 70% of the global production. This is the nickel, and this is the lithium. So the level of extraction and processing of the battery raw material in Europe, as I was saying, is marginal. For lithium, hard rock mine project exists in Austria, Portugal, Serbia, and Finland, but the collective plant capacity, if they can indeed open this site and begin the extraction, will be like around 8% of the estimated 2027 world demand. So we are not even reaching 10%. It's really low. For cobalt and nickel, there are some European mines also in Finland, for example. But anyway, once again, it's expected to be really low, let's say, really low proportion compared to what will be the need worldwide. Europe is a large producer of primary silicon, and it also produces natural and synthetic graphite, but once again, not in the wide quantity that will be needed. And this is the additional material consumption for batteries in electric mobility. So you can see that the additional materials, it's like it's been multiplied that almost by, it should be multiplied but almost 15 by 2030, but more than 40 times by 2050. For graphite, it will be around 10 times more in 2050. For cobalt, 10 times also, nickel, 3 times, and manganese, well, 0.07 times, not so much. Well, of course, the most important and the most obvious is lithium. So the demand for lithium is expected to grow in an incredible way. So, as I was already saying, well, European Union produces like 1% of battery raw materials, which is really low. 54% of global cobalt mine production is from Congo. So 54% of cobalt comes from Congo, followed by China with 8%, Canada 6%, and then New Caledonia and Australia. Then the raw cobalt is refined, it's processed, and the processed cobalt, the highest production comes from China, 46%, then Finland, 13%, and Canada and Belgium both 6%. Around 90% of the lithium is produced in Chile. Then Australia, 40%, is produced in Chile, 29% in Australia, and 16% in Argentina. So this is 90% of the worldwide lithium production, which is concentrated in these 3 countries. Okay, it's extracted mostly from brine and spodumene sources. So you know more than I do the salares, beautiful salares in Argentina and in Chile also. In China, there is extraction of lithium from hard rock minerals. So this is mines, and this is 45% of the extraction. Then about the processing of lithium and refinery, Chile has the 32%, and then Argentina 20% to get the processed material. Then about nickel, well, all the nickel, not all the nickel is actually suitable for this kind of application, for battery applications. It's must be a high-grade nickel, okay? And not all countries are able to produce this kind of nickel. Also for graphite, for example, there are precise requirements regarding flake size distribution, carbon content, and so on. So this can be reached by additional refining steps. And once again, China holds the majority of the market. Well, so basically, China, Japan has the biggest share of the market, and the European Union, for example, is fully dependent of this country. So if we look, I think that sí.
Ya estaríamos casi en tiempo, si podrías ir acortando un poquito.
Sí, claro, está bien. So I will go up, and I think I talked about the materials. We can just have a quick look on the future technologies. So, sorry, too long. About the future technologies, basically, these are the kind of technologies that are of interest for the research, okay, to get higher energy density and so on. So, all solid-state lithium batteries with lithium metal anode, lithium sulfur batteries, sodium-ion batteries, the redox flow batteries, then batteries based on different multivalent ions like magnesium, zinc, calcium, aluminum, or also metal air battery like lithium air, sodium air, and so on. I wanted just to show you briefly, no, I don't have so much time anymore, sorry, something about all solid-state lithium-ion batteries with a lithium metal anode and lithium sulfur battery. So all solid-state batteries with lithium metal anode are like basically the same of lithium-ion batteries, but the difference is the electrolyte. So there is no liquid. The electrolyte is fully solid, okay? This indeed represents a gain in gravimetric and volumetric energy density if you use metallic lithium. If you use the classical intercalation anode, there is no gain in gravimetric or volumetric energy density. Okay. What can be the kind of electrolyte? It can be or should be the electrolyte. It should be chemically and electrochemically stable with the lithium metal anode and the cathode. It should have a very high conductivity and adequate mechanical properties, of course. And they should show good charge transfer kinetic and be ideally insensitive to water vapor or CO2 and so on. 4 main types of solid-state electrolytes can be distinguished, like polymer-based, sulfite-based, oxide-based, and a mix of the previous one. Okay. For the polymer, well, the most studied is PO, polyethylene oxide, but there is still some problem of conductivity with PO, and the PO batteries can work just at elevated temperature, not at room temperature. For the oxidic solid electrolytes, the ones that are considered actually are LATP, or for example, garnet type, glass ceramic garnet type like LLZO. This one has really high conductivity, lithium conductivity, even at room temperature. LLZO is stable against lithium metal. They don't possess critical raw material, for example. They do not decompose, forming toxic gases. They are thermally stable, of course. The problem are they are really brittle, so they can break down really easily. So this can be a problem. They require high temperature treatments. And it's like a challenge to process it because of the unfavorable mechanical properties, sensitivity to atmospheric moisture, and so on. For the sulfide-based solid electrolyte, the room temperature conductivities are even higher than typical liquid electrolyte. This is really interesting. We are talking about, like, for example, 3 millisiemens per centimeter. And the absolute record is like this material with this composition, which has a lithium conductivity of 25 millisiemens per centimeter. So it's really high. It's easier to process than the previous oxidic solid electrolyte, but the problem is that it reacts really easily with metallic lithium, but also, for example, with moisture from the air, and it forms H2S gas, which is actually a poison. So this is an issue. And the hybrid ceramic polymer electrolytes are basically using polymer matrix to embed these other materials, so either the sulfidic or the oxidic ones. And it allows, let's say, to obtain like a good compromise between all the properties. Lithium metal anode allows for a really high theoretical capacity, so this is the theoretical capacity, while having a low density. So it should allow to reach high energy density all solid state battery. The problem is the reactivity of lithium, which forms dendrite, which you can perforate the separator or the solid electrolyte and create short circuits inside the cell. So that's why solid electrolytes are actually really interesting, because they are supposed to be a barrier against the lithium dendrite. Okay. And briefly, the other technology is lithium sulfur battery, which in the difference of the lithium ion battery. So classical lithium ion battery is an intercalation battery. Okay. So the lithium ion is intercalated basically between the cathode material and the anode material, while lithium sulfur batteries is a conversion reaction. So there is an electrochemical reaction taking place between sulfur and lithium. Okay, so sulfur is present as a ring of 8 sulfur atoms, which get opened by the lithium ion. Okay, and it forms like shorter and shorter lithium polysulfide chain. And the interesting fact is, like, for one molecule of sulfur, you make react 16 atoms of lithium. So you exchange indeed 16 electrons. That's why the specific capacity of the lithium sulfur battery is really high. It should be around 1,675 milliampere hour per gram. Okay. With also, for now, the next expectation are 500 watt-hour per kilogram for lithium sulfur system, but theoretically it should reach 2,500 watt-hour per kilogram at low operating voltage. It uses also lithium metal as an anode, okay, and usually liquid electrolyte, but some solid electrolyte are also under study. Another interesting fact it's very low cost, because sulfur is very cheap, basically. And it does not use any critical raw material like cobalt, for example, and so on, because you don't need so much of this kind of critical raw material. The problem is these lithium polysulfide I was talking to you about are easily dissolved inside the electrolyte. So One, the viscosity of the electrolyte increases a lot, making the conductivity decrease. And two, they can directly react with the lithium metal and passivate it. So the problem of the lithium polysulfide is very important in the research for lithium sulfur technology. And yeah, it's a really important part of the research, let's say. Okay. Other problematic is that both sulfur and the lithium polysulfide are electronically insulating, meaning that if they depositate too much on the anode or the cathode, they block the transfer of electron, and so they block the electrochemical reaction, basically. And also the lithium sulfur electrode, the cathode, expand a lot about among charge of discharge, so they tend to be delamination or cracking of the electrode. So there is still a lot of research to be done. This is, well, the research topic of my group. So we work both at the material scale, so really low TRL, so for solid state system, post-lithium chemistry, sensors, and so on. We also work a little bit on industrial applications with the testing of modules and battery packs, and on hybrid new cell design and integration. I'm really sorry for being too long. This is the picture of the group, and I thank you all for your attention.
Muchas gracias, Julia. No sé si hay alguna pregunta en el auditorio. ¿No? Bueno, no.
Yo puedo preguntar.
¿Sí?
¿Me escuchás, Julia?
Sí.
¿Sí? ¿En español puede ser?
Sí, sí.
¿Sí? Bien. Dijiste que en Europa van a incentivar la compra de vehículos eléctricos con subsidios. Y cuando sacaron esto bajó un poco la venta y ahora se espera que suba porque se va a restringir la compra de vehículos a combustión. En China vi que también sacaron los subsidios, dijiste, pero no dijiste si va a haber una restricción en China respecto a usar vehículos a combustión. Esa es una pregunta porque parece por las previsiones que sigue aumentando la venta, pero no sé si van a restringir o no. Y la otra pregunta es si estas restricciones se tienen que mantener para que se sigan comprando autos eléctricos o si en algún momento va a ser económicamente conveniente comprar un auto eléctrico que uno nafta.
Bueno, voy a probar a contestar en español, pero es así, más o menos. El tema de los incentivos para comprar los vehículos eléctricos, creo que ya como en China ya lo hicieron y ya está, ya no lo hacen más. No sé cómo es el tema, cómo sea ahora que no lo hacen más, hay más gente que compra de nuevo vehículos térmicos. Eso no lo sé. En Europa no es lo mismo en todos los países, pero es como más o menos ya dieron también los incentivos. Ahora que estamos yendo, creo, en un periodo de crisis, ya no va a estar más incentivos, creo, o menos incentivos. Se puede decir. Pero en Europa el tema es que, como decía, decidieron que desde el 2035 no va a ser posible comprar nuevos coches térmicos. Es como, ya está. Así que va a ser posible solo comprar vehículo eléctrico o híbrido o cosas así. Sobre el tema del precio, bueno, no sé, se va a diventar más como más barato comprar un vehículo eléctrico que térmico en los próximos años. El tema es que todavía el costo es elevado y también vimos que el costo de la celda de ion litio ha estado decreciendo en los años. Ahora, por el tema de los materiales, no sé si va a continuar así. También el precio del litio en los últimos años, o los últimos meses también, creció de algo como 400%, 400%, sí, que es una cosa increíble. Así que sobre el tema del precio no sé, no podría decir, no soy segura.
Muchas gracias, Julia.
De nada,
De nuevo, muchas gracias por tu participación.
gracias a vos, a ustedes.